So hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending wherever you are. Welcome to this side event of the COP26 here in Glasgow. We're going to have a very international panel, a very attractive event. It's called Supporting Multi-Level Cooperation for Implementation of Transport Strategies in NDCs. My name is Juan Carlos Muñoz. I am a professor in transport engineering in the Universidad Católica in Chile, and I'm also a member of the Scientific Advisory Board of the Ministry of Science for Climatic Action. So I'm very pleased to be here with this fantastic panel. This session is being co-organized by the following organizations: SLOCAT, Euroclima, GIZ, which is also an NDC TIA, Tracks and Moving Chile, and finally also Mobilize Your City. The event will focus on multi-level cooperation for implementation of the transport aspects of nationally determined contributions, what we denote as NDCs, at all levels of governance. The session will highlight the European Union's and other global actors' central role in supporting the coordination of different levels of government to accelerate NDC implementation through sustainable low-carbon transport. The focus here will be on regional case studies highlighting different forms of cooperation to implement the transport aspects of NDCs from Latin America, Asia, and Africa, providing an opportunity for cross-regional peer learning. So it's a great opportunity really to bring to the room experiences from different areas of the world, and I think the panel is very attractive in terms of this scope. It's very important also to mention that a publication on lessons learned from a recent GIZ peer-peer learning activity in Latin American countries and the Caribbean will be released, and today it will be presented in our first talk. So we have a great panel here, and we have three of our speakers in the room, and we have, I understand, one or two. Two are connecting from abroad through our video conference technology. So we will have from Chile, Carolina Simonetti from the Ministry of Transport and Telecommunications, and also Hugo Pizarro from the regional government of Antofagasta, also in Chile. Are they here already? Good. We will have from Africa, Esther Gakanja, from the Climate Change Desk Officers. She's also a senior economist at the State Department of Transport, Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, and Public Works in Kenya. Welcome, Esther. And we will also have Andrea Davila, high-level climate champion and lead zero-emission mobility projects for Latin America and the Caribbean. We will start by asking Carolina Simonetti to give her talk, and then we will continue with our panel. Please, Carolina.
Good afternoon, good morning for us in Latin America. Nice to see you, Juan Carlos. I will speak in Spanish, so please hear me with the translation system. En primer lugar, quería saludar
First of all, I would like to say hello to all of my colleagues and everybody that is present here, to our colleagues in India and Kenya, and to Hugo Pizarro from our regional government in Antofagasta in our country, Chile. Also to Juan Carlos Muñoz, who I know it's been many years now, and think to have been invited to this event through SLOCAT, Euroclima, and especially to our friends from GEZ. The call to the climate change in our sector asks us to advance in strategies and planification that allows us to give transportation that is accessible to people, but also that is aligned with the objectives, global objectives to diminish emissions, become resilient, and adapt ourselves to climate change. The implementation of these actions are not without challenges, especially for our ministry ministries and our governments, where we have to see the constant attention between resolve and maintaining the systems operating on a daily basis and ensure that there is transport, but also without tackling the medium and long-term effects. That's why, as the Ministry of the Transport in Chile, we consider that the important role of our sector. We invited our Latin American colleagues to meet up and discuss and exchange experiences and learn how to we move on with a more sustainable transportation. Next slide, please.
Thank you. El proceso de nuestra serie de intercambios ha sido muy valioso.
The process of our exchanges have been very valuable. We have been able to learn climate strategies in our sector, and we have also seen relevant experience of our region that let us see what we can apply in our own countries. We have seen that we have seen similar challenges, similar gaps, and that every country from different perspectives, we have developed mechanisms to be able to tackle difficulties.
And we
could see these lessons and build key messages for transport in Latin America, for this to be available for anybody that works in this area to transform transport anywhere in the world. This publication has concepts, messages, and relevant experiences for 4 points that are key: strategies, climate strategies in long term, public transportation and recovery in green areas, and also urban and sustainable, and making the public transportation with different type of electricity, and also to interact online. And we hope that this is useful for the implementation of climate actions in transport in your countries. We would like to share with you now some of the main key lessons that we have gotten from our exchanges, so we can implement them in the tackling climate change in the area. The next slide.
Next, please.
You will see. Can you put next slide, please?
Thank you. Tenemos las estrategias climáticas de largo plazo.
We have the climate strategies for long term.
Respecto a esto, cabe destacar que mitigar las emisiones
del transporte en una región como América Latina es un desafío mayor. In Latin America is a huge challenge because of the reality of our countries. That is why the climate action in transport has to be gathered in the LTS and NDCs to be able to talk with the government to integrate the national integrations and for each territory, like the implementation to also avoid change and improve public policy in mobility. Next slide, please.
En cuanto al transporte público y la recuperación
regarding public transportation and green recovery, for us it is very important to remember that the public transport, it is the key in any huge city. And we have seen with the COVID pandemic what is the fragility of our system. But the crisis of COVID has also been a huge opportunity to be able to learn from our transport systems, to know its weaknesses, and to adapt ourselves to the operations and structure of financing and subsidies as well. We have to move forward in the development of public transportation, recover the trust of the users, and impulse the users of electricity, a different type of energy for the transports. Next slide, please. Regarding sustainable urban mobility, we can comment that with a rate of 80% in urbanization, Latin American countries have a key role in diminishing the emissions and implementing new strategies for it to be sustainable. For this is key to see that the mobility is something in a huge integrity, adding with a public service transport with the center of the system, combined also with different type of mobilities. Next slide, please.
Para las ciudades es un gran tema en este momento en nuestro país. Estamos trabajando fuerte en eso. Es importante entender que
we have
extender la
worked
electromovilidad en
strongly
nuestro
with the key
país es un
messages
gran
for climate
desafío, pero
change
también
in
una gran
transport.
oportunidad
The
para
mobility in
mejorar
our
los
country
sistemas
is
de
a huge
transporte
challenge, but
público
also a huge
y
opportunity
para
to be able to
aumentar
improve
la
the
calidad del
systems of
servicio,
public
no solo
transport
la
and to
calidad
be
del
able
aire.
to improve
Necesitamos
quality of the
avanzar
service, not
en
only the
ampliar las
quality of
experiencias
air.
piloto a
We need
ciudades
to
más
move
pequeñas que
on
requieren
to
soluciones
broaden
a
the
medida
experiences,
y
pilot
que se hagan
experiences in
cargo de
small
las brechas
cities that require
normativas, tecnológicas y de capacidades. La
strategies that
electromovilidad
can
requiere una
also
industria
be
de
standardized, and the
transportistas más
electromobility
formalizada,
requires an
empresarializada
industry
y
of
con
transport that
conocimientos
is more
técnicos más
formalized
avanzados que lo que tienen hoy en
and with
día.
knowledge, technical knowledge
Finalmente, algunos
that we have
comentarios
so
para
far.
terminar.
Finally, some
La acción
comments
climática,
to be able to
next please.
close this presentation.
Thank you.
Next slide,
La acción
please.
climática requiere que las medidas sean adaptadas a las realidades
Climate
diversas de
action
cada país.
requires that
No
measures
sirve
has to be adapted
una
to
sola
different realities
solución
of
para
each
todas
country.
partes.
We
Por esto,
we
aprender de
cannot have
nuestros
just one
pares con
solution to
experiencias
fit
y
everywhere.
contextos similares
That is
es
why we need to learn
fundamental.
from our peers
Las
with
redes y plataformas
experiences
para el
and with
intercambio de
similar
experiencias
context
serán
than our own,
relevantes de ahora en
with
adelante
networks and
para
platforms
difundir
and
los
exchange of
proyectos
experiences are
exitosos y
very
también
relevant
las
from now on.
dificultades encontradas en el camino.
And
Finalmente, quisiera
also the
destacar que
difficulties
Latinoamérica tiene
that we
muchas
find on the
experiencias
way
que
have to
aportar en el
be shared. I
proceso
would
de
like to highlight also
transformación del
Latin America has
transporte
a
y
lot of
esperamos que
relevant
les sean de
experiences
utilidad.
that can be
Y
replicated in the
finalmente,
process
no
of
quiero terminar
transforming
sin
transport,
agradecer
and we hope
primero
this is
a
of
los
views for other
colegas de
countries.
los ministerios
And
y
I would
gobiernos
like to end
subnacionales
by
y también
thanking
a los
the
expertos, entre
colleagues
ellos
of
Juan Carlos
ministries and
Muñoz,
government,
que nos
of
contaron sus
subnationals, and also
experiencias y
the experts
generosamente
like Juan
compartieron
Carlos
con
Munoz that
nosotros
told
sus
their
aprendizajes.
experiences and
También
shared with
agradecer al
us
Ministerio
their
Federal
lessons
del Medio
learned.
Ambiente,
I also would like
Conservación de
to
la
thank the
Naturaleza y Seguridad
Federal Ministry of
Nuclear de Alemania
Environment and Conservation
y a
of Nature
GIZ por
and
ser nuestros socios en esta
Nuclear
iniciativa,
Safety
y
of
también a Slowcat,
Germany and
UITP y a
GZ to
Euroclima
be our
Plus por su
partners in this
apoyo en la
initiative.
realización
Loica,
de estos
UTP, Neuroclima
intercambios.
Plus for their
Muchas
support
gracias.
when doing this exchange. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I was part of one of the panels. Carolina and I are very good friends. She was my teaching assistant at some point at the university, so we really know each other pretty well. And now we're going to move into the panel. And I would like to start with you, Esther. I think it would be really great if you can provide us with an African perspective of the opportunities that you see on this kind of collaboration. How are you in Kenya coordinating the work with other levels of government, other sectors to help deliver these transport and climate goals? What are some of the main challenges you have encountered in coordinating with other levels of government or ministries? These are part of the questions we would like to guide the discussion today. So, Esther, please.
Thank you. Yes, Esther Gashanja from Kenya. I would like to give a presentation of how we coordinate climate change.
This is not the PowerPoint. Yeah, thank you. Please.
I'm not seeing it.
We have it.
We will have it in a minute.
Takes a second.
So yeah, so we will be having the presentation of Esther soon. The other guiding questions we have are also, what did Kenya do to overcome some of these challenges and strengthen multi-stakeholder coordination to deliver on transport and climate goals? This is also something we would like to discuss. And another important issue for the European Union where we are now is how could the European Union and other international actors help each of these countries or systems achieve these goals? This is part of the conversation we would like to have. We will have. Okay, so now Esther, please. There we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So as I had said, I'm Esther Gashanja. I work at the State Department for Transport in Kenya as a principal economist and also the climate change focal point officer. And we have a climate change unit that is charged with coordinating the climate change issues in the transport sector. And this unit is anchored to the wider Ministry of Environment in the country and is obligated to implement the NDC as submitted by the country and as targeted in the transport sector. In the Kenyan NDC, we have committed to reduce GHG by 32% by 2030. And for the transport contribution to that, we intend to implement low carbon and efficient transportation systems. And the actions there include to shift the movement of goods and people from road to rail, because currently the modal share is not fair. We also intend to increase the uptake of the electric mobility options, and we intend to enhance the efficiency of the country's vehicle fleet, especially the transporters, the freight transport. We are also intending to invest heavily and implement the mass transit, the bus rapid transit, to encourage people to move in mass. We are also implementing the active mobility options by providing the non-motorized facilities, transport facilities, and encouraging the low carbon technologies in the aviation and maritime sectors. And for mitigation, we have several collaborations, and we also work with the Ministry of Energy and other wider ministries to enhance the targets that are set and to ensure that there is synergy. In particular, in transport, we have collaboration of the sub-institutions involved. We have membership, and we have committees within those institutions that implement and enhance the collaborations. We work with the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, we work with the Kenya Airport Authority, we work with the Kenya Highway Authority, we work with the Kenya Ports Authority, we work with Kenya Maritime Authority. All this represents the several modes of transport to ensure that all these modes are efficient and they are emitting less. And we work closely with GIZ. GIZ gave us some technical support to set up this unit and even implement some of the NDC. And going forward, we still implement more projects with them, touching on e-mobility. Yeah, and we are saying that some of the activities to institutionalize the cooperation is like reporting, the monitoring and verification and reporting regulations have been established and are awaiting enactment and implementation by all players. And every year we do report annual reports, and we also develop and populate and share the data collection templates real time. And we also develop MOUs where possible to agree on how to share data that is available to ensure that there is synergy and the information is communicated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Esther, this is a good complement to the presentation that we received from Carolina. Now we're going to move back to Chile. We're going to have another presentation from Antofagasta. I don't know, I understand that Hugo Pizarro is already connected, and I hope, Hugo, can you please start with your presentation?
Thank you. Please, I will talk in Spanish. Please, the first slides. Bueno, en Antofagasta es una ciudad que está
Okay, in Antofagasta, it is a city that is in north of Chile in the desert area that implements the plan of mobility, sustainable mobility in the 2018. Our city, we want to develop as a compact city or a city that is an extended city, an extension that we have seen in the last years. The image that you can see in the slide, what is in red corresponds to the area that concentrates the most population, and a polygon here that you can see in blue represents the services or the commerce in the city, in the center of the city. Here we can detect that most of the population lives in the polygon, in the red polygon. Most of the services and the commerce is on the blue color, and so we have to travel. People have to travel, move from where they live to the center. 30% of the vehicles are of private character, 34 to public transport, and there's a percentage of around 28% that walk or just don't use any transports, and only a small number that uses some sort of like bicycle or vehicles like this. And we want to invert the pyramid and to be able to achieve that most of the people that are mobile are walking and using bicycles and public transport more than private transportation. Next slide, please. Regarding the actors in the different levels of the government, and the truth is that we have a nucleus of work that of regional government with the participation, small participation of the municipality, and the NGIZ company that is in the. We have other public services, for example, the Secretary Transport of Environment, and we also have a stakeholder that is Antofagasta. And parallel speaking, to complement, we also have the social table that has the orientation, indication, observations of the public and private actors representing the transport society and civil society. Here, next slide.
Thanks. Respecto de los objetivos estratégicos,
regarding the strategic objectives, our plan establishes 5 different points. The strategics that are the points that are developed regarding to the technology that was done through the GEC German enterprise that you can see here in the graph on the right hand side, that has 4 steps. We have gone through the 3 first. We are still pending on the 4th one. We are finishing our plan now, and our action plan. Next slide.
En esta imagen ustedes pueden ver cómo una ciudad de 30 kilómetros de largo,
and we can see here how a city that has 30 kilometers of and 30 kilometers long, and we can see a matrix of transport, and here the objective is to, in this grid that you can see with different modules, be it by different types of mobility, walking, public transportation, etc., how each person can activate their different uses for mobility in this huge scheme. Like Simonetti said a few minutes ago, the objective is to diminish the distances to new sub-centers, generate new sub-centers, do the integration for mobility, and implement the smart management to be able to ease the processes in each of the steps.
Aquí podemos ver que esa máquina teórica o esa grilla conceptual se transforma en
conceptual grid is transformed in mobility axis inside the cities. You can see the different colors here. We have the people that are walking in orange, and some of pilot implementations that you can see in the red square, and here the public transport, which is the violet or the purple color, and the green, where we can see the seaside and the train that crosses the whole city. And here we have a few images of different ways and possibilities to develop in this context.
El plan establece 7 paquetes de medidas.
The plan, we established 7 measures for these strategies against 33 measures. Here we have identified each one of them.
y que fueron desarrolladas en el transcurso de estos 2
that
años,
were
¿verdad?
developed
Finalmente,
in 2 years,
se establecieron distintos
2 years'
escenarios
time,
para
and we
poder
established different
modelar y
scenarios to be
seleccionar
able to
el plan, y la mesa
create
técnica
this plan, and the
se
technical
inclinó por aceptar o por proponer
board
el de
accepted
nivel
and
de más alta
proposed
ambición, que incluía las 33 medidas que les
the
mencionaba.
hardest one,
Por
or
lo
the most
tanto, dentro
ambitious
que
one,
se
with the
identifican algunos
333
riesgos en su
measures that
desarrollo.
we
Next, please.
mentioned before.
Y se desarrolló una evaluación
And we
multicriterio para ello,
developed a
donde se
multi-criteria
establecieron
evaluation for it, where we
algunas
established
condicionantes de análisis
some
para los distintos
conditions for
escenarios, las
analysis
distintas
for the different scenarios
propuestas de
in
medida,
the
¿verdad?
different
Ahí se pueden ver algunas en detalle.
proposals. Here you
Tal
can
vez
see some
un
that are detailed
aspecto
here.
relevante
And
es lo que
a
vamos a ver en
relevant
la
aspect to
próxima
mention
slide.
is what we're
Next,
going to
please.
see in the next slide,
Que corresponde a la
that
modelación de
corresponds
emisiones, tal cual está allí.
to the
Se
planification of
modelaron
emissions.
entonces las distintas emisiones
Here
para
we
esos
did then
distintos
pilots for
escenarios,
the different
materializando
emissions
las
for the
distintas
different
medidas, y
scenarios
tenemos que para el
of the
2050,
different measures that we want to
en un
take.
escenario
And for
optimista, nosotros
2050, in a very optimistic
podríamos reducir
scenario,
las
we
emisiones de
hope
gases
to
de efecto
reduce
invernadero hasta en un
emissions
56%.
in
¿Verdad? Ese es un
56%.
dato relevante para
And this
nosotros,
is
es
a
un
very
escenario
relevant data for
obviamente
us. It
el
is a
más anhelado
scenario that
por esa razón
obviously
es el más ambicioso
is
como
the
impacto ambiental,
most ambitious
y que
one,
por supuesto además está asociado a ciertos
and
costos, ¿no?
that
The next,
it is
please.
associated with certain costs, of course.
Ahí se podemos ver en esa lámina
Here we can
cómo
see on this
se
slide
dimensionan los
how
costos de
we can see the
este
costs
plan, y
of this
los costos
plan
asociados
and
a las
the
distintas
costs
acciones que ello
linked
va
to the
a
different actions that
poder
are going to
alcanzar.
be taken to be able to reach this
Por
goal.
último, next please.
Finally,
Señalar de que
I would like to
este
highlight
trabajo
that
ya se empieza a materializar de
this
alguna forma.
work is
En Antofagasta
already
se
being
está
materialized somehow. In
implementando ya
Antofagasta, we are
la
implementing
licitación para un
the
piloto de 40
licitation
buses
for a
eléctricos, es un
pilot
plan
of
piloto,
40 electric
40 buses eléctricos
buses.
que
This is a
comenzarían a operar a
pilot
partir del
plan that would
2022,
start to
y
operate
se
in
enmarca obviamente dentro de
2022.
este plan.
And this is
Mencionar
inside
además que
this
también la
plan.
hermana ciudad de
And
Calama
also
está
want to say
comenzando el
that
desarrollo de un plan, por lo
Kalama,
tanto
the
se
Twin
replica
City,
dentro de la región
is also doing
esta grata
another
experiencia
planification
con el
like
apoyo
this, so we
de
can
la Agencia de
replicate
Innovación
this
Alemana GIZ.
planification with the
Y
support of
nuestro
GIZ, a
principal
Germany
aprendizaje
enterprise, and also
de
our
las
main
slide, please,
lesson of
es
next
que
slide, please.
en ciudades
The
pequeñas o
main
intermedias como las
lesson is
nuestras,
that in
de
the
500.000
small or
habitantes, ¿verdad?
medium
Donde
cities that
pareciera ser
have
que
500
los
in
impactos
population,
ambientales no
it
son de gran
means that
envergadura, no
the
obstante creemos
impact,
que la sumatoria
environmental
de la red de
impact,
ciudades latinoamericanas de mediano
and
o
the
menor,
cities
de menor
in Latin
población
America that are
pueden generar
small,
grandes
have small
aportes, y tal
population,
vez
medium
las
population,
soluciones son
can
más
make huge changes, and maybe
rápidas
the
y de menor
solutions are
costo
quicker
comparado con las
and
grandes
with less
metrópolis que
cost
sin
compared
duda
with the huge
también debemos tener
cities,
acciones de
and
mitigación
that
y
without
de
a doubt
reacción en
we
ese
have to
sentido.
have mitigations plans. And
Muchas gracias.
thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Great talk. I have some questions for the three of you now. Carolina, Hugo in the conference, and Esther here in the panel. My first question is related to how much of your vision comes from perspectives from abroad? How can we coordinate the work with other? No, sorry, I'm sorry. How can we learn from other cities or countries' experiences? How this kind of collaboration international can enhance the work you do on the years where you have been developing these plans. How much of this has come from international experience, from the what you've been learning from abroad? I don't know if any of you can take a little bit of this on sharing with us the value of collaboration, since this is the focus of our panel today.
Do I give it a start?
Thank you, Esther.
Yes, for Kenya, we have really benefited from the cooperations because, as I said, we got a grant from the German government through GIZ, and through the grant, we were able to synthesize and digest the commitments that are contained in the Paris Agreement and in the national NDC, and particularly for the transport sector, and even to set up the unit to ensure that there is implementation of the actions, and to track the impact of the action, and also to be able to report. So for us, we have seen the immense assistance that collaboration can bring. And therefore, going forward, we also look forward to further collaborations because as we said, we also cascade to institutions, and we also cascade even to other levels of government. And therefore, once we have that kind of collaboration, we can disseminate to others. We can transfer the experiences, the knowledge, and the experiences as we implement the climate actions to other levels of government and to other institutions and even to other agencies.
You have an amazing and very large capacity BRT going through the middle of Nairobi, right?
Yes.
And that's something that you have learned, and this is knowledge you receive, for instance, from the experience abroad in Bogota, for instance. Are these kind of experiences being shared also to other cities in Africa that want to learn from the Nairobi experience, with, for instance, with the bus rapid transit?
Yes, we do. We do share. We do peers. We do benchmarks. Others also come to benchmark from us where we do well, like where we have a very good highway, Thika highway with 8 lanes. So there is that close collaboration, and also there is the dissemination also through the websites, the website for the ministry, for our CEOs, for our leaders, and there is that borrowing from each other and sharing of experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
I would like to ask Carolina. Carolina, you were presenting today an international document presenting experiences from our continent. And we are in the middle of hopefully going out from this COVID pandemic crisis in which the transport system has suffered probably probably the most. We have seen our public transport efforts plummeting because of this, and car trips recovering very fast. We have seen in many cities in the world that bicycle trips have grown, and that's good for the cities. So my question for you is, how much of this, because this has been like a little bit of an earthquake for everyone, because it has changed so many of of how we have been addressing public transport or urban transport. So what do you think about how international experiences have allowed cities to be a little bit more audacious in terms of taking measures that probably in normal times they would be much more difficult to implement?
Of course, the international experience was very important. One of the most important things was to see that everyone had the same problems. That this was a huge and global problem with the public transport and with the tendencies with the use of car. Also, we looked at the solutions in terms of micro mobility, bicycles fundamentally, and but the problem in our cities is the budget. We saw a huge investment in Europe, but we can't afford that. So it was very challenging to use our lower resources in trying to implement those cyclo routes or these kind of facilities. Also, it was very difficult to maintain the supply of public transport, even though we have a 90% reduction of demand. This was very challenging in terms of funding the public transport in order to have a system when the pandemic get finished. So we learned a lot, but it was very satisfying. Is a kind of say, knowing that it was not a problem of one country, of one minister, of one city. It was a global problem.
In the study that you presented, which compares really different how different cities perform and how they can address the sustainable mobility challenges, were you able to identify how different governance systems can influence the effectivity of these measures? Which kind of cities are the ones that are better prepared or best prepared to implement or to go out of this crisis versus other ones that, because of the governance, are in a much worse situation? I don't know if you can comment on governance a little bit, Carolina.
For example, in the case of public transport, we see that in those cases where the systems are more formal, was easier to maintain the systems, because when you have a lot of operators, it's too difficult to give them subsidies, for example. They don't have contracts with the government. And in the case of the other measures, for example, the cycle routes, I think the cities that do the best were the cities that have a local government. In Santiago, we do not have yet a local government. So the national government has not all the tools to implement measurements so locally. So it was very challenging.
Yeah. So there's the issue, right, of fragmentation too. Like,
yes.
Because we may have local governments, but it's so fragmented that at the end you don't have anything that really can address the problem. So
here in Santiago, we have 34 local governments. So it is very difficult to implement measurements in a wide range, in a wide scale, in coordinate ways.
And also, Carolina, maybe there's the issue of the bike as a mode that's not having maybe an agency that is in charge of promoting it, because we usually have agencies that promote underground or that promote buses or that are in charge of highways, but the bike seems to be in nowhere's hand, and that's when probably the fragmentation of the authority hits you the most, right?
I think the bike is in many hands. That is the problem. We as Ministry of Transport, we regulate, but we do not build cycle routes. So it's many agencies in charge. So nobody is really in real charge of this issue. This is, in my opinion, the problem in our cities.
I see. Yeah, so now, yes, a question to Hugo is, I was surprised, Hugo, about how you commented that you were able to reduce the length of the trips. And that is something that is really amazing, because very often here in the COP, what we've been hearing is that we should be focusing on making the trips less, causing less emissions. But you're coming through a different path. You're saying, okay, fine, we want to have less emissions, but we also would like the trips to be shorter. And I think this is fascinating, because what you do when the trips are shorter is then maybe biking or walking becomes much more suitable or likely. So can you comment a little bit on how do you expect the system to drift towards shorter trips, Hugo?
Thanks. Please, I need translate.
Hugo, la pregunta es, ¿cómo logran ustedes que los viajes puedan ser realmente cambiar los viajes a electromovilidad, con lo cual la ciudad sigue siendo extensa? Entonces la pregunta es, ¿cómo pretenden lograr eso?
Sí, bueno, con la generación de nuevos subcentros, pero además por
with the new generation of new subcenters, but also complementing different networks. Antofagasta, apart from being a city that is long and narrow, like Chile, with the same problems, but in a different scale, also has the opportunity to complement different ways. So
La idea de
or different
poder
modalities. The
reducir los
idea
tiempos de
is to
viaje también
reduce
va a tener que
the
ver también con
traveling.
esa
Is
disponibilidad de
also
los
the
ciudadanos
transport
de
time
poder
also
realizar
has to do with the
viajes más
availability of the
cortos
citizens
tal
to
vez
be
en
able to do
tiempo
smaller journeys, maybe
y en
in
otros
time,
casos la generación de
or
nuevos
shorter
subcensos como ya
journeys,
está
and also
ocurriendo
the generations of
también
new subcenters like is
permite ir
happening right now
fortaleciendo viajes más
already,
cortos
and
por
allows to
disponibilidad de nueva
strengthen
infraestructura.
this
Así que son dos
with
caminos
the availability of new
complementarios
infrastructure.
y que
So
de
there
alguna
is
manera
two
apuntan a
ways that complement
al mismo
itself
objetivo.
and
Ahora, la
have
ciudad,
the
por
same
tratarse
goal,
de una capital
the same
minera,
objective. Since
¿verdad?
the
Que es otra
city is a
característica
mining capital, is another
no menor,
characteristic that
también
is
tiene bastantes
important.
condicionantes desde el transporte
Also
logístico.
has different
Es toda una
conditionings for
temática que
logistics in
nosotros estamos
transportation. It is a
visualizando
subject that
ahora
we
y
are
que es parte del
tackling
plan,
right
es parte
now,
del análisis,
is part of the planification and
que
part
también
of the
influye
analysis that
en esos
also
datos
affects
estadísticos.
this
Pero
statistics
más allá
data.
de
But
los datos numéricos, también hay que
more than
pensar
data
que
and numbers, we
la
have to
ciudad
think
está,
that the
los
city
que se
is
movilizan en la ciudad no es solamente el
the
transporte
people that are
logístico,
mobilized in
no
the city is
solamente
not
los
only
vehículos,
logistic
son
transportation, not
personas,
only
ancianos,
vehicles,
jóvenes,
these are
niños que se
people,
mueven día a día
elderly, young
y la verdad es que el
children
foco entonces está en
that
primer
move
lugar
daily.
pensado en ellos.
So the focus is first of all set on them. Of international collaboration, a city like Antofagasta would like to receive. When you show your plan and you say, this is the path that we're going towards, we have projects, we have ambitions, where are the real needs for an event like this one, for example, of international cooperation? What are the
Sí,
needs
como
that you would like to
señalaba
see covered?
Carolina hace un rato
As
atrás,
Carolina said before, not
se
long
requiere
ago,
también de que la
we
cultura
require
empresarial empiece a
that
desarrollarse a
the
nivel local
entrepreneur
y que
culture
también
can be
podamos
developed
optar tal
locally,
vez a
and for
financiamiento de
us
consorcios, por
to have
ejemplo, asociándonos
subsidiaries, for example,
con otras redes, tanto de
being
carácter nacional como
linked to other
internacional.
networks,
Para
be
alguna
it
infraestructura se
international and
requiere
national.
efectivamente inversión
We require
importante. Muchas
some
veces el Estado
investment for
no tiene todos los
infrastructure that
recursos
is
como
very
para
important.
poder
Maybe the state doesn't
implementarlos
have, the government
rápidamente.
doesn't have all of the
Por lo
resources
tanto,
to be able to
también es
implement it quickly.
posible pensar
So therefore, it is
en
possible
financiamiento
to think
internacional.
maybe
La
in
región en general
international
acá
financing.
tiene un
The
fuerte
region,
desarrollo
generally speaking, has a
en el
strong
desarrollo de energía
development
solar o
in
en
the
la generación de energías
solar
limpias
energy
y
development
tal vez
and
es una
clean
oportunidad de compartir
energy, and it is
ganancias y
important to an
experiencias
opportunity to be able
con
to
las propias
share
grandes empresas que
experiences
están
with
desarrollando
the
estos nuevos
bigger
proyectos
enterprises
de
that are
tecnologías
developing this
limpias
new
en la región.
clean technologies in the region. Thank you.
We have the presentation of Emily Hosek, which unfortunately, my mistake, I missed at the beginning of the session by presenting her. Emily is the Director of Knowledge Impact at the SLOCAT Partnership on Sustainable Low Urban Transport, SLOCAT. She is an urban planner and sustainable development specialist from UPenn. She currently focuses on research, policy analysis, and advocacy to ensure that sustainable low carbon transport is at the forefront of international and regional climate change and sustainability processes. And she will be talking about how we can support countries and cities on the implementation of transport in the national in NDCs.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So yes, I'm representing SLOCAT today, which is an international multi-stakeholder partnership of over 90 entities working to power the transformation to low-carbon sustainable transport with ambition, solutions, and collaboration, and ensure that sustainable transport is central to work on climate change. We work very closely with the Euroclima Plus program, which is the European Union's flagship program on environmental sustainability and climate change in Latin America. So today I'd like to go over and share some of the work and resources that SLOCAT, Euroclima Plus, and a number of other partners, including GIZ, have to support ambition and implementation of sustainable transport in NDCs, all supported by the European Union. So first, to really understand globally and regionally where we're at in terms of transport ambition and climate strategies, SLOCAT and GIZ have actually produced a tracker of climate strategies for transport, where we look at greenhouse gas mitigation targets for transport, supporting transport targets and measures, and compare between regions. Also looking at the progress that we've made on including transport in these climate strategies between the first round of NDCs and the second round of NDCs, and also enabling looking at the best practices and looking at what other countries within your region are doing to include transport in these strategies. We just released an accompanying report, an analysis of this work as well. Specifically in the Latin American and Caribbean region, another tool exists supported by Euroclima Plus and CEPAL, which is ndclac.org. And it allows users to view information on the progress that countries are making in the implementation of the content in their NDCs, and also looking at the updates that are coming in the new round of NDCs. So it's really possible for citizens to monitor the goals, that it really improves transparency of the information and supports countries in the region to raise ambition overall, not just for transport. We've also done some awareness raising campaigns to raise the transport ambition in climate strategies, including GIZ's recommendations and resources for policymakers to align transport with the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Agenda. And SLOCAT and Partners Transport and NDCs campaign, which emphasizes setting specific targets within NDCs for transport. It includes different resources and case studies available both in English and Spanish. And an example of this is the first recommendation is to include specific transport sector carbon dioxide mitigation targets. So that's a really first initial key that we're hoping countries include to really start to catalyze action. And as you can see in Cuba's recently updated NDC, they've actually set this specific target to reduce fossil fuel use in ground transport by 50% by 2030. The Euroclima Plus program also organizes workshops bringing together ministers of transport and the environment and other relevant stakeholders to discuss raising ambition, transport ambition in NDCs, including setting the short, medium, and long-term objectives and priorities, as well as identifying gaps and challenges. These pictures here were from the last in-person workshop, which was held in Bogota in February 2020. And these participants, the different ministers came together. They continued to work together after the workshop, and we've set up a virtual platform, which I'll mention later, to kind of be able to continue the dialogue, share best practices, and continue raising ambition in the region, supporting interministerial cooperation. On the side of implementation, Euroclima Plus, Mobilize Your City, and other partners are supporting the development and alignment of national urban mobility plans and sustainable urban mobility plans, NUMPs and SUMPs, which Hugo had mentioned from Antofagasta. They provide the framework for the implementation of transport ambitions in NDCs and really help bring these agendas down to the national and local level, looking at specific policies and measures, who's responsible for what, where the financing will come from. So really, there's a lot of support in preparing these plans. There's a set of guidelines in several different languages, and there's also a specific course on sustainable urban mobility planning in Latin America, an online course that was supported by, it's actually bringing kind of the SUMP methodology to practical implementation, running in parallel with project implementation. So cities are developing their SUMPs while they're exchanging knowledge and best practices within these online platforms. So this will be actually developed into a self-learning course and made available publicly very shortly. There is also another online course on sustainable urban mobility supported by TUMI, which is available in English, but was also translated and brought to Latin America through the Euroclima Plus program and regional partners. And as I mentioned before, in Latin America, practitioners, decision makers, and other stakeholders working on transport have a joint space where they can come together and coordinate, share best practices and knowledge, etc., through this community of practice for sustainable urban mobility. And also, as we already saw in Carolina Simonetti's presentation, the Moving Chile project, supported by GIZ, has developed a series of peer-to-peer exchanges on looking to enhance ambition in transport, and they will be releasing a report, I believe, tomorrow. So you can learn more about that. And finally, moving to another region, GIZ supports the Council for Decarbonizing Transport in Asia, which is made up of 14 regional transport experts and supported by a number of international partners with different expertise. And the Council has set 3 goals: to visualize change, shift the narrative, and engage with leaders to decarbonize transport in the region. So really bringing together these champions in the region to help everyone raise ambition together. There's lots more resources here as well. I'm not going to have time to go into all of them in detail, but hopefully everyone will have access to this PowerPoint, or please feel free to email SLOCAT and we'll share the resources with you. But there's lots out there if you're looking to raise ambition or implement at the national and local level sustainable low carbon transport.
Thank you very much, Emily. So I would like to comment that there's room for questions here in the audience or through the video conference, of course, and we will be happy to ask our panelists the questions you may have. I think the issue of this NAMP-Ensemble, or the opportunity to put or move a little bit cities towards a more integrated planning is really, really key. It's very common, especially in the developing world, that the authorities and the governance is very, very fragmented. So the opportunities to provide funding that will allow them to develop this integrated plan, these mobility plans, are really, really relevant. I would like to pass the word now to our last panelist, Andrea Davila. Andrea works in the high-level climate champion team. And she has been leading a project for Latin America and the Caribbean on zero-emission mobility. So, Andrea, can you please tell us a little bit about your project?
Yes, sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for introducing me, Juan Carlos. And I would like to start off with a video that a colleague of mine did for this conversation. So can we start with that? Thanks.
Música, ¿no? There should,
no idea. No idea.
I think.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's almost over. Okay, thank you. So with that, I would like to start off with, I think, for the transport transition, the transition should be just and global. And so global and just in the sense that we should include all methods of transport and mobility, as well as recognizing that transport looks very differently in different sectors of the world. And so with that, we created the Zero Emissions Mobility Project, which pushes cities to increase their ambition in the Global South, to decarbonize their whole public transport system to zero emissions by 2035, which is amazing ambition from the sector. And so to help cities do that, as a team, we created a playbook, a 40-page playbook that looks at the most important insights and questions of transport. It looks at key recommendations from organizations, as well as includes case studies from the region. And with that, I have to thank all of my partners who did this with me. GIZ, SLOCAT, UITP, ICLE, TUMI, UNFCCC, C40, UNEP, Euroclima, and of course, Race to Zero. And alongside the playbook, we also included technical tools, which is a compilation of all the technical tools from the organizations, as well as workshops and one-on-one guidance for the cities to transform this. And with all that effort, we have gathered 3 cities from 3 different countries to decarbonize their whole sector, which are Cuenca, Bogotá, and Salvador, which is incredible. And so we do think that cities are key to improving NDC commitments from countries. If you got the chance to see Major Khan yesterday, he really did say that we are seeing action from cities more than on a national level. And so I think that by increasing ambition in cities, national governments get the opportunity to see the ambition that is growing in cities and therefore also increase their ambitions in the NDCs. And so I'm running out of time, so I'll have to finish by saying that before COP26, the electromobility agenda was mostly focused on the northern hemisphere, as it mostly is for climate action. But a few months before COP26, we expanded this horizon to the southern hemisphere by including this project and including Latin America and the Caribbean, and further on include Africa and the rest of the global south with this project. We started with Latin America just because they have the most ambitious transport right now from the global south. And so with that, we really do invite cities, those who are watching, to join this commitment to increase our ambition and, of course, make 2021 the most impactful year for climate action yet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's very interesting what the call you mentioned from Major Khan of London.
Yes.
Because if we go back to our conversation about governance, I mean, they have the right governance for transport. They have this figure called Transport for London, where they manage in a single hand all transport modes, land use, economic incentives, and it seems that to me it surprises me that even though we've seen this, that in London works so well, many cities in the world have found a lot of problems to move in that direction. So the issue here is how can we join the different territories, integrate the different transport modes or the different sectors to have a single hand in make our cities better. It's very difficult to move forward, for instance, by corridors if you can only do so much within a certain territory, but the trips really cover the whole city. So I think that's a big challenge. It's going to be key. It's very difficult to imagine that we will be moving or pushing, promoting sustainable transport modes unless we first address that kind of governance. We are now at the end of the session. It's already the end of it. I would like to thank all our speakers, and I think we have managed to have a great conversation. And I really look forward to more of this coordination, integration among cities, collaboration, best practices being shared. And I thank very much the opportunity to participate, and also thank all our sponsors, organizers, to be putting funds on making our cities talk to each other and share part of the experience. Thank you very much to everyone.